Hello friends, this is Dr. Jyoti Saxena and I welcome you to my channel Biotech Made Easy. We saw the viruses shut down the whole world during pandemic 19. So how can something as powerful as viruses be considered as non-living? So let's find out in this video whether the viruses are living or non-living. So the main question is, are viruses alive? So this is probably the most debated question in biology, most controversial question in biology. Why? Because viruses can reproduce like the living organism, and we all know that the reproduction is very important feature of the living organisms. But they can do that only in presence of host, and when they are outside the host, they cannot even replicate, they cannot even survive. So, where do viruses really fit? So let's break down this scientifically. What makes something living? So first of all, we will see why something is called as living. To decide if something is living or it is alive, there are certain features or certain characteristics of life which we use. So the first one is the cellular organization, very important feature of the living organism. All the living organisms have certain kind of structural arrangement, what kind of organelles are there, how the tissues are arranged, what are the organs. So all that kind of features are known as cellular organization. That is important part of living organisms. Then metabolism. Metabolism is something, it is sum of all the bioreactions which are taking place inside the cell or inside the body. So, for example, the energy production or the respiration. So, if we are breathing or we are doing the respiration, so inside the body, many chemical reactions are taking place in which the enzymes are also participating as a catalyst. So, all that sum is known as metabolism, which is again important feature of living organism. Reproduction, as we said, it is a fundamental character of the living organism, and all the living organisms have this tendency or the capability of reproducing the similar type of offsprings. Then growth and development is again important feature. With time during the lifespan of any living organism, the growth and development takes place. That is that may be in terms of number of cells, for example in bacteria, or that may be in terms of size or weight. So it increases, which is important for the living organism. And then there is response to stimuli. If there is any kind of stimuli, this stimuli may be internal or external, anywhere in the environment, then the living organism always respond towards it or react towards it. So this reaction or this response may be conscious or it may be spontaneous, but it is there in the living organisms. Then genetic material. The genetic material mostly is DNA, and DNA is responsible for taking the information or the traits from one generation to another. It may be RNA also in case of viruses. And all the living organisms have this ability to evolve themselves because the environment is changing, and to survive there, the living organism also have to adapt themselves. So they have the ability to evolve if they are living. So these are the features which must be present if something is living. Now, what living traits viruses have? Because here we are debating whether the viruses are living or non-living. So let's see what are the living traits. They have genetic material. They have either DNA or RNA. So this genetic material is the one of the features of living organism which they have. Then they have the ability to evolve. they show different type of mutations and genetic recombinations, and because of that they can evolve, they can adapt themselves according to the changing environment. And we can take the example of influenza virus or the flu viruses. They are surviving for a long time and they are changing themselves. Then replication, of course, reproduction or replication, multiplication, this is seen in viruses. They can make the progeny, they can make the offsprings, but that takes place only when they are inside the host, not outside the host. So let's see what are the traits which viruses lack. See, they do not have any cellular structure. Like we said, that all the living organisms should have the cellular structure, but they do not have. They have no metabolism, no chemical reactions or biochemical reactions are taking place inside these viruses. Then they cannot reproduce independently. So as we are discussing, that they can reproduce, but that is only in presence of host. So they must have a host for the reproduction. They cannot do when they are without host or when they are outside the host. No response to stimuli. They do not respond towards any stimuli. They do not react. So what viruses are? Actually, we saw what are the characteristics which they have, which are similar to the living organism, and what are the characteristics which they do not have. So now let's find out their position. Viruses exist in a gray zone. Gray zone is a middle category. So that means neither they have all the characteristics of living organism, nor they have all the characteristics of non-living. So we can't call them, living, neither we can call them non-living. So they are called as non-living, or they are actually non-living, and they are called as virion when they are outside the host. So these days, when the viruses are present outside the host, we do not call them viruses. We call them virion, and this is a stage when they are non-living. They are showing all the characters of non-living. And inside a host, then they behave like living organism. They are reproducing. They are showing many of the characteristics like the living organism. And then they can be called as the viruses. So there is a difference between virus and virion. So what is the best scientific answer? Viruses are considered as the edge of the life because there is no other organism in the universe which have the characteristics like viruses. Viruses are completely unique and they challenge the traditional definition of life. If we consider them that they are alive, then whatever our definition of life is, that is challenged by the viruses. And neither they are fully living nor they are fully non-living. We just cannot say that they are totally living, and we cannot say that they are non-living as well. So they are biological entities that display life-like properties. So the scientific answer is that they are biological entities. Of course, biological entities which display life-like properties only when they are inside the host. So this is something which is very critical thing that you have to add every time, that when they are inside the host cell, then they show the living properties. And many scientists also classify them by different type of terms. For example, some say that these are obligate intracellular parasites. Why we call them intracellular parasite? Because they are acting as living organism only when they are inside the cell, inside the host. So intracellular parasite. And obligate also, because as soon as they come out of the cell, they start acting as the non-living. And they can also be called as the acellular infectious agent. Acellular because they do not have any cellular organization like the other living organism. Even bacteria have certain cellular organization, but these viruses do not have. So they are acellular, but of course they are infectious agents. We saw COVID-19 also, but otherwise also we have seen that many diseases are there which are because of the viruses. So they can be called as the acellular infectious agents, and some scientists say that they can be called as the replicators and not an organism. They say that we should not, of course they are biological entities, but we should not call them organism, but we should call them replicators, because they are replicating. So a modern view is the virus life cycle view, which says that it has two forms. So one is the infection cycle, which you can call as the living state, and this is the one when the viruses are present inside the cell. And virion is the non-living cycle or inert stage, and this happens when the viruses are present outside the host. So when they are outside the host, they are inert and they show dual nature. So they may show the infection cycle and they may show the non-infection cycle, which is non-living. And it solves the debate. So debate was whether they are living or non-living, but actually the modern view says that both are true. They are, one phase is when they are living, but that is inside the host, and the other phase is when they are non-living or inert, when they are outside the host. So what is the conclusion? Viruses have genes. Yes, of course they have genes, because they are carrying the information from one generation to another. They can evolve, they can mutate, and they are surviving, and they are replicating inside the host. But they do not have any cellular structure. They do not show any kind of metabolism or reactions, chemical reactions, and they cannot reproduce alone. When they are outside the host cell, they do not replicate. And that's why the viruses are not completely alive or not completely dead, but they occupy a unique position in gray zone, that is the middle path between living and non-living. And their characteristics make them one of the most fascinating entities in whole universe. There is no other organism, no other entity which is similar to viruses. So that is all for today. Thank you so much. And if you want to know more about the different type of organisms and different topics of microbiology and biotechnology, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.